Well, welcome to a kind of sad day of useful idiots.
Or
I
a new
want
day,
a
depending on
new
how you
day.
live.
It's both.
Yeah.
It's a new chapter. I don't want to say it's the end of an era. It's like a pause of one era, an inauguration of a new era.
It's a
You want to?
between era.
It's between
Yeah.
era-ish. It's a new era-ish,
Right.
and I hope everyone watching this is sitting down or listening to this is sitting down. Now you may not be. Well, probably for
You may be
watching it.
parachuting.
Parachuting it, but what? You may be afraid of like heights, and so you want to do something that engages you, like watch your favorite show, so that you're not distracted by,
Right.
following
I
safety
see. So
guidelines.
if you're trying to do like a high wire act, this is what
Yeah,
you'd be listening to in order to calm your nerves
yeah, exactly.
on the way over.
Yeah,
If that's the case, this might not be the show.
yeah. You may want to pause this and
Yeah.
listen to some other
And
podcast.
get to the other side.
Oh yeah, that too. Right.
Yeah, and then come back. So because we have a little bit of an announcement. The announcement is, and let's just cut to the chase. I'm going to be taking some time off. Going to step away from the podcast for a little bit. I have a deal to write a book. Got a pretty tight deadline. Just going to be pressed for time, so just won't be able to do it for a while. And as a result, Aaron Mate is going to step in and take my place.
Buzzsaw Mate, as they call him.
Buzzsaw Mate, is that what they call him?
Yeah, that's what we're telling people is why you're stepping away. But really, Bashar al-Assad is exploring with Matt. I'm a little hurt that they didn't want me involved, but they're starting a reality TV show. Why don't you tell them about it, Matt?
Yeah, Damascus Shore.
Yes, Damascus Shore. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's certainly the real reason. Also, the rehab for my addiction to God. What's the horrible drug that I
ayahuasca. Matt has a really bad ayahuasca habit. He
Right.
cannot stop drinking that vine-based beverage, which makes him purge from both ends, but resolve a lot of early childhood trauma. And he needs to kick the habit or else he's going to damage his organs.
Right. So I've got to step away to take care of that for a little while. Yeah. In all seriousness, we know personally, I think the show's probably going to do just as well, if not better, without me. But I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. But there are probably going to be some people who are upset, and of course, we're here to listen to all those complaints or any reservations that any of you have. We're incredibly grateful to the support of our subscribers, which allowed us to continue the show. And hopefully will allow the show to continue even further.
Yeah. Or else you let Pod Save America win.
Yeah, right. The terrorists win otherwise. Thank you for being understanding about this. And if you're not understanding about it, we certainly happy to listen and to any of those complaints.
Yeah.
But let's look at this, with an optimistic point of view and say this is going to be cool. And
yeah.
And the book I'm writing is interesting. It's about a sort of a sector by sector look at how every industry ripped everybody off during the pandemic. So it's kind of in the mold of books like Grifftopia or The Divide. Has to be kind of heavily reported, which is why I got to take the time off. That should be it should be fun. It's going to be hard work, but I think it's going to be good for everybody. So
you forgot a very important part of our transition, which is that Matt is not disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be doing pop-ups.
Yeah, I'll be around from time to time. There might be a few live things that we do here and there that I'll drop in on, and a couple interviews. So not stepping away completely. It's just that the scheduled time I need to have open. So
it's not a resignation.
Right. It's not a resignation. It's a sabbatical and specifically to get something done. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
And we're going to have some kind of exclusive with Matt.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. We got to provide the community which gave you your start. You see what Matt is not saying is that before Useful Idiots, Matt really didn't have much of a career.
Yeah. My Q rating was like -4.
Yeah.
Before
So
that.
thanks to us, by which I mean me, Wilson, and all the viewers and listeners, Matt got this book deal. So
Right.
Matt, for the first time ever, is going to be writing a book.
Right.
It's been on his bucket list.
I'm not looking at this as unearned privilege. I'm standing on the shoulders of
giants,
of useful idiots.
Right. Yeah. In fact, we're getting a co-writing credit, guys. It's by Matt Taibbi
and useful idiots.
Yeah,
that's right. We have a great show for you today.
We do.
As
really
usual,
great.
We're not going to tell you who the guest is, but it's somebody we like a lot, and so do you normally.
And we know you like him too. And as Wilson described this, just to put a pin in it, it's a new twist on an old favorite.
Right. Exactly. So I guess we should just get to the 4 food groups, our last 4 food groups for a while. You're up, right?
Yep, I am up.
Yeah. So what do we have?
All right, let's take it away. All right, so we got a great clip from Biden, and I thought it'd be interesting to actually. Well, let's play the clip, and then I'll read the tweet that described it, I think, pretty accurately. So this is Biden being asked about COVID.
Look, there is no federal solution. This gets solved at a state level. Look, there is no federal solution. This gets solved at a state level.
So Joe Biden on COVID, there is no federal solution. This gets solved at a state level. And Kate Willett, friend of the Katie Halper show, great comedian and author, says, so the Trump response without the stimulus checks, which is, I think, kind of an accurate way of describing it.
That's a pretty weird thing for the president of the United States to say.
I mean, it has good Strom Thurmond energy. Right?
Oh, I mean, like the states' rights.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some things that are legitimately state issues, like policing. It's pretty tough to stand up and say the federal government is going to do something to sweepingly change police tactics in the country, since they don't actually have a police force.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And Derica Purnell tweeted out a quote from the Biden-Harris campaign, which was, Biden believes we must spend whatever it takes without delay to meet public health needs and deal with the mounting economic consequences. The federal government must act swiftly and aggressively to help protect and support our families.
Well, look, they punted on loan decision, which
big time.
Didn't I predict that? I predicted they would do that.
I think we should have done that. In fact, we can do that today in our show, what we predict for this year.
It's very hard as we've seen, it's very hard for the Biden administration to suddenly turn off like a Trump program that was started by Trump to stall student loan payments, for instance, right? And so for them now to kind of back away and say, well, yeah, COVID and the implications of it, that's a state problem. Geez, I don't know.
I mean,
that's a pretty hard one. That's a hard one to survive, I would think.
Well, yeah, and just to point out, I just want to. There's a doctor, a primary care doctor named Andrew Goldstein, who responded to this clip of Biden, and he said, "Wrong. You have power, POTUS. You could, 1, message the urgency and ability to save lives, fund vaccine outreach, CDC guidance on mask mandates, mark test provision, venue protections, 4, vaccine patent waivers, and tech transfer, 5, OSHA worker safety standards." So those are just some ways.
Well, there's all the various, I don't even remember what the acts are called, but like the National Defense, whatever act that allows them to marshal the nation's industrial resources by fiat, essentially, to correct problems. And so, their power in a genuine emergency, which I guess you could argue this still is pretty limitless.
Yeah. Maybe Biden just doesn't believe in himself enough. Maybe that's what it is. Do we need to give him a pep talk about his limiting beliefs that are getting in the way?
Know. You know what? I wouldn't underestimate it. I just wrote a piece about how I think that because you saw they did this whole thing about how opening up a new program to give parents more input into education, which is clearly a response to the drop in poll numbers and the Terry McAuliffe thing, but particularly the sort of unprecedented drop in poll numbers on Democrats and Republicans on the education issue.
Right.
That the pattern with Biden is that we tend to underestimate him we tend to think that he's so maladroit and
Right.
ridiculous that and that the stuff he does is just not like politically
Thought out.
survivable.
Yeah.
And yet next thing you know, he's being elected.
Right.
Oh
my God, we really-
So yeah, I wonder about all these gaffes, the sort of lack of direction, and I wouldn't even classify the Build Back Better thing as a gaffe, because I've talked about it a million times.
Yes.
I think this is what they actually wanted,
right?
But will that hurt them in the end? I have no idea. We'll have to see.
I mean, one of his big shticks, and a big shtick for Democrats in general and technocrats in general, is the lack of feasibility of something, and things are always impossible until they're not. So
Right.
it just can't be done until they're actually done. Whoops! Look what happened. And that happens when it's politically not survivable to no longer not do something.
Yeah, this is what their big weapon against Bernie was.
Yes, nice idea.
These pie in the sky fantasies about
puppies and rainbows.
Yeah, puppies and rainbows. Oh, if only we could pay for all that. And then next thing you know, they're approving, as we talked about last week, a $1.3 trillion appropriation for defense and intelligence and stuff like that. It's obviously a failure of imagination, but to me, this moment also reminds me a little
not
bit
even
of
imagination. I feel like that's giving them too much credit. It's a failure of will. Yeah.
It also reminds me of the winter of 2008, 2009. I guess early 2009 is the way to put it, because that was after the country was in a genuine crisis, right? The economy had just collapsed. It looked like disaster was in front of us for a long, long time, and we had a new president with a ton of political momentum at his back, who was liked by people all over, including in Republican districts. They kind of failed to take advantage of that moment, to do something interesting. They could have really fixed some of the actual unfairness problems with the economy. They could have done something to actually root out the corruption. They could have made it more open in the way that FDR did. They just didn't do it. They didn't take advantage of that political opportunity. Biden administration in the wake of COVID is starting to remind me a little bit of that. They're in an emergency, both a political and an actual one, right? Because the country's split and all these other things. And rather than think big, it
reminds me of a great book by friend of show, frequent guest of show, Thomas Frank, called Listen Liberal. One of the biggest messages of that, I think, takeaways of that, is how much the Democrats pretend they can't do things when it's just that they don't want to do things. Just imagine for a second if Donald Trump had said that.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh my God. If you could play that exercise a million times in your head.
It would be unprecedented moment of shirking responsibility, betraying the country, betraying the office of the presidency, betraying the founding fathers, a slap
total
in
ignorance
the face of democracy. Of how things work.
Yeah.
All the way. Blue checks would have listicles. Every single outlet would have a listicle of all the ways that Donald Trump could actually, marshal the federal government to save lives. But because it's Biden, I guess, look, he's right.
Okay, so we spent a lot of time talking about a 5-second Biden
we gotta
clip.
do it.
We have to do it. Yeah.
It's a pretty big fucking deal.
For Republicans suck, there's sort of it's sort of a matching weirdness. And there's no video here, but Wilson, if we could just look at this story by MSNBC, which I rarely read anymore unless I absolutely have to. But
you hate reading it.
Yeah. The headline is "More Red States Extend Unemployment Aid to Vaccine Opponents." Go down and you read it. It was in the spring when many of the nation's Republican governors embraced a provocative economic idea. As regular readers may recall, after congressional Democrats approved enhanced unemployment benefits, these GOP officials decided the smart move would be to cut off the extra assistance to the jobless in the hopes that it would force people back to work faster. We now know, of course, that the idea was wrong and that the Republican policy didn't have the intended effect. But the larger point remained unchanged. Leading GOP officials saw unemployment aid as a problem. The sooner jobless benefits could be curtailed, the better off we'd be. as able-bodied Americans return to the workforce. Paying people not to work, Republicans argued, was counterproductive. Now we get to the punchline. In recent months, many of those same GOP officials have changed their minds, but only for a small part of the population. In October, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds, one of the Republicans who rushed to get people off of jobless aid in the spring, acted quickly to make unemployment benefits available to those who lost their jobs for refusing to get vaccinated. A month later, a handful of other red states had done the same thing. The Washington Post reported yesterday, meanwhile, that the list is gradually growing. Then blah, 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 it goes down. There's Arkansas, Florida, Iowa, Kansas, and Tennessee have carved out exceptions. And Wyoming, Wisconsin, and Missouri are reportedly weighing similar policies. So the punchline here is people who normally would very much like to curtail one of the more important benefits that actually does exist in this country, which is unemployment aid, especially during a pandemic. Those same people now think their hearts have been moved by one particular group of unfortunates, and it's the people who've lost their jobs due to vaccine policies. Right. Now, in one sense, I can't believe I'm saying this, I get this politically, right? Like if I'm a Republican, I know exactly, I know why they do this, why they would do this, but it's vile nonetheless in terms of the hypocrisy of it, because it's right. If you really, really believe that there are people in this world who just need the help, right? Because life has dealt them a bad hand. But you only believe that for people who've lost their jobs because of vaccine, because of this reason. That shows a pretty limited amount of imagination about the hardships that people go through and the reasons that people get fired. If this is the extent of your compassion, empathy. Yeah, exactly. That's pretty fucked up, I would say.
Oh yeah, it's disgusting. I mean, it's kind of I almost am grateful for it because it's so revealing. Although no one cares. Just like we're like, well, how can Biden do this? Is this politically survivable? And sadly, tragically, all these things seem to be politically survivable. But this is, I know it's funny. It's like their culture war anti-vaxxerism is at odds with their usual sadism. And they're trying to balance those two things. Sorry,
oddly enough, I think Kim Reynolds, Wilson, you might want to look this up for me. I'm pretty sure Kim Reynolds is one of the few GOP governors who has been, well, actually, I'm wrong about that. A lot of the GOP governors have been pretty good about vaccine policies. They've been about making them available, about making sure that people have access to it. All the Republican governors have created those programs. She's been one of the people who has actually been leaning more towards the administration on vaccine law generally. It's just that she's trying to have her cake and eat it too, or I guess the real expression is actually eat your cake and have it too, it turns out.
Really?
Yeah, I just read that recently. I can't remember where.
That makes more sense, because have your cake and eat it too. You have to have the cake to eat it, so there's nothing notable about that. But I guess it's eat it and then have it is once you eat it, you don't have it, so that's what makes it.
Yeah. Anyway, she's trying to do the Solomon-esque political thing by
Norm Solomon, obviously referencing
the Norm Solomon-esque political thing by delivering to messaging for both sides of the aisle.
Neither party cares about you. Both parties are okay having you drop dead.
Kim Reynolds is one of those politicians that you cannot find an interesting video clip of.
Oh, wow.
There are not many. I mean, actually, I shouldn't say that. There are a lot of politicians like that who cannot be made to be interesting. But most politicians have at least one funny video out there somewhere, Right. Like even Mitt Romney doing "Whoop, there it is," right, is funny.
Who let the dogs out?
Who let the dogs out? Can we watch that, by the way? That's just funny. So here's Mitt Romney, who's one of the most boring people on the planet. You could sit next to Mitt Romney and not even sense an interesting thought for a year. And this happened.
Hey, I can be up here. Come on. Who's
So he's posing with young.
Who let the dogs out?
Oh my god! With black teenagers and black preteens, I would say, and posing for a photo with them, and then just cites that classic song, "Who Let the Dogs Out?" Who? Which is ironic, given that he famously
he had put a dog on there.
a dog on top of his car, driving from, I think, Massachusetts to Vermont or Maine or something,
like that,
and it shat all over the car,
right
on top of it, because it was that's some sadism there.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
That's fucked up. I could not vote for some, and yet his child tax credit bill is better than Joe Biden's.
So and his
healthcare
plan is I would say better than the Obamacare.
Obamacare, yeah.
But yeah, no. But even for him, I remember covering him.
Yeah. Did you ever? Were you ever like did you ever make eye contact with him? Were you close enough to do that?
Oh yeah, no. There were. I was with him on some pretty small events in New Hampshire and Iowa and South Carolina, and but I remember thinking, like, this is the most boring person that I've ever covered. Like, it's going to be impossible to dream up an angle to make this person interesting. But it turns out that there are people even less interesting than Mitt Romney out there. I'm not going to say that Kim Reynolds is one of them, but I'm guessing that she is. I do. A cursory review certainly suggests that that's the case. But who's your most boring politician, Katie?
I don't know, because I feel like I don't pay attention to them if they're boring.
Most of the ones you know about are kind of interesting because they're at least sleazy, right?
Right.
Like Matt Gaetz, like you look at him and all kinds of interesting thoughts go through your head about like what this person's probably like. We had some pretty boring candidates during the 2020 Democratic primary race.
Well, I like him. What's his name from Washington? Inslee, Jay Inslee.
Yeah, Jay Inslee. He was cool.
He was wholesome, so he's not boring, actually. I don't know who's a boring Gavin Newsom, but he's also a sleazeball, so that doesn't work.
Deval Patrick.
Yeah, he's kind of boring.
John Delaney was pretty boring. Yeah, in that race, the other people who were who you would think of as boring were Tim Ryan. Yeah, but he was so boring. He was like invisible though. Except
when he was like, "You don't have to yell."
Right.
Remember he said that, and then like turned that into a bumper sticker.
Then there was Tom Steyer. Remember, like who's his method for combating his boringness was like
dancing.
The red tie.
Oh yeah, well,
red plaid tie.
That's just the tip of the iceberg. He had a couple things going for him. He kind of looked like a Keebler elf, and
although I would argue the other guy from 2016 was more of a Keebler elf. Lincoln Chafee is who I'm thinking of.
Oh yeah, the man who's looks like he's made of granite.
Does he?
Or he looks like he's wearing a mask of himself. No, but he also has there's a great performance of him dancing to Back That Ass Up, him and his wife.
Really?
Oh my God. No. Sorry, Tom Steyer.
Oh, right. Yes. No, we watched that. Yes, I remember that. Yeah,
and
it was great. Yeah.
He, of course, totally fanboyed out at Bernie Sanders. Remember when he and Elizabeth Warren were fighting because Elizabeth Warren lied? She's so boring. She's actually incredibly boring. Warren.
She is.
But her whole Native American thing makes her, there's a lot to talk about.
There's some darkness with her.
A lot of darkness. I mean, how could there not be? Intergenerational trauma of being, wounded knee.
Right. Yeah. All that stuff. Trail of Tears. All that stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
She has to wake up every day knowing that Leonard Peltier is still in jail. It's a lot. It's a lot for one Native American woman to deal with.
Right. That's true.
Aunt Bee's cheekbones to remember. Those high Indian cheekbones that Aunt Bee had.
Yep.
Plus, she killed her first. She probably killed her first golden retriever.
Did she?
I think so. Okay. I feel it in my gut. I feel it in my bones. Like she's a capitalist to her bones. I'm a golden retriever side.
Wait, what was that thing with her big inflatable dog again?
Oh yeah, big structural Bailey.
Big
How
structural
could you
Bailey.
Liz Holio. Remember?
Yeah, no, I remember that. that's so weird that actually happened.
So weird. I know, it feels like a dream almost. Like, is that real or did I have a dream? I had this dream that Elizabeth Warren was like making this weird body movement thing. And also there was a huge blow up of her dog Bailey, and she was shouting big structural Bailey. I don't know what I had been smoking.
I met Bailey.
I know he was cute, right? There's a photo of you with him.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
but I also believe that Bailey is multiple dogs, like the Ashley and Mary Kate Olsen twins.
Right.
Oh no, was there a photo of you? Yeah, there was a photo of you.
Yeah, there's a photo of me with Bailey. I felt kind of guilty because I felt like I was like approaching the dog on false pretenses.
Oh, like you didn't tell Bailey, like, to be fair, I've mocked you. But
Yeah,
I really mocked
exactly.
your owner, not you. There's nothing wrong with
Right.
Bailey. You should have been like,
Anyway.
I know you're not really Bailey. You're Bailey number 1, Bailey number 2. There's no Bailey.
God, that was such a weird campaign.
So weird.
So bizarre. So many people.
So many people.
What was that about? Why were there 28 candidates?
Yeah, that was crazy. And we did Camp Crystal Lake. That was fun.
That was fun.
Wilson, I didn't see this until just now, but Wilson put in Tim Kaine as a boring politician, which I think is a pretty good.
Tim Kaine is an extremely boring pun.
Yeah.
He's so boring we didn't think of him.
Exactly. That's the big challenge.
He was vice president in the most he was the running mate in the most interesting presidential election in certainly in American history, I would say. But Kaine was in the middle of that story every single day.
Boring.
And did we think of him even once?
No, it was Wilson who thought of him.
I haven't thought. I mean, I did recently think about Tim Kaine because I've been doing the Virginia stuff. But even while I was watching a video of him talking,
you forgot who it was. I
forgot who it was. He is legitimately
extremely boring.
Really boring. Let's tweet it out and see what people say. Anyway, all right. What do we have for?
Isn't that weird?
Isn't that weird?
Sales assistant shocked after spotting used sex toy displayed in charity shop window. Ellie Hardy, 30, was shocked when she realized that the Love Honey product had a used sticker on it at the Nottingham store. A woman was shocked after spotting a used sex toy for sale in a charity shop window. Ellie Hardy, 30, could not believe her eyes when she noticed the Love Honey G Tickler on offer for £8.99 at Headway charity shop in Nottingham on Saturday. The sales assistant from London.
That's too cheap. I'm sorry. If I'm going to buy something that I'm going to put inside myself, I want to spend more than eight pounds.
Well, I don't know though, but because it's used. Have you ever? So that's a game changer. Remember, the sales assistant from London was left in stitches when she realized on closer inspection that the item, which cost $19.99 used, oh, you have a point there, Matt, had a sticker on it saying used. She shared a picture of her bizarre discovery on Facebook later on that day, writing, "The used tickled me. Why?" The item, which is still listed on the Love Honey site, boasts 3 speeds and 4 patterns for exciting vibration variations and has 4.5 stars out of 5. Ellie said, "We were heading into town to buy some last-minute Christmas presents when the G Tickler caught my eye in the charity shop window, bottom shelf next to a pair of sparkly shoes. I couldn't believe this made it to the window, and on closer inspection, I saw the used sticker and fell into a fit of giggles. It's safe to say this wasn't purchased for one of his last-minute gifts. I was shocked and had so many questions. Who in their right mind donates this? Who decided to sell it? And who in their right mind would buy this?" I mean, it is true. Here's the thing with the sex toy, right? Like, you can't, it's a bit of a conundrum because it's not returnable, exchangeable. So it's a big investment because you have no idea what it's going to work like, right? So really, all sex toys should be sold. You should buy a sex toy. It should have a condom on it. And you have to go back to the store to get the condom removed or something. I mean, because there are a lot of people who don't have money and who probably would like sex toys. And they're deprived of it just because of this difficult sanitary health issue.
I guess you're right. I'm sure there are probably some low-cost solutions to some of those problems, but
yeah, federal solutions. That's what Biden could be thinking about.
Sex toys?
Federal solutions to sex toy. Yeah. I mean, what if someone spends thousands of dollars looking for the perfect sex toy? At least they should be able to donate it to charity and write it off and get a write-off.
That's right.
It's not really fair.
Yeah. Instead of cars for kids, you'd have, yeah.
There should be a solution to that, though.
secondhand sex toys.
Yeah. Because think about how many people must go through them. And then you have nothing to do with them.
And then they're just
Wasted. It's not fair. It's not good for the environment. It's not good for people who can't afford sex toys.
I just thought of a great plot for a porn movie.
What? Donating?
It's like Sex Toy Story, right?
Oh, see, I haven't seen Toy Story, so I can't.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, so instead of all these toys that no longer have, they just are desperate to be played with. It would have to be like a Pixar quality,
right?
But they have to find new owners,
right?
The sparkling thing also gave me an idea. Like, what if you could rewrite the Wizard of Oz and have a ruby tickler?
Oh yeah, that's true. Right.
There's no place like home.
Yeah.
There's no place like home.
Yeah, and then you turn it on and off, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of the shoes.
And you end up back in Kansas.
Yeah. We're gonna have to have Matt back on for certain segments like these.
Yeah, I don't know. So staying on the theme of Weird England, interesting story in the Daily Beast. By the way, the Daily Beast's fonts, it's maybe my least favorite publication for a variety of ways, but its presentation is.
Oh yeah, the font it's kind of violent. The font.
Yeah, it's a very violent font, and it has this little feature with the slanty subhead.
It's not even a subhead. It's like a because they have the subhead, but that it's like they make up a vertical or something.
Yeah, I forget what we call that.
How do you describe that? It's like a little tag.
Sometimes you'll have a thing that sort of finds itself repeatedly in the design, but this is
right.
This is always new. A lot of the Russiagate stories in the Daily Beast had amazing tags like this,
and they aren't red. Yeah. So if you go on the front page of the Daily Beast, you see these red little things in red. So it's like the headline is Trump advisor lays out how he planned to overturn Biden win, and then red, when a stranger calls.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Woodsman hunting for antlers stumbles on missing MMA fighter. Larger than life. Omicron is breaking us, but we can still avert catastrophe. New normal.
Strange light from space is pitting China against the world. Trash or treasure?
Wealthy Florida man murdered during luxury hotel orgy. Ensnared. Russian dissident snatched hours after Daily Beast interview. Blood feud. And then the last one on the front page is refresh your gym gear lineup with these epic Lululemon deals. Scouted.
I hope there's one. I hope they have just one person who's responsible for writing those.
I know.
That would be great.
Right. They're really insane.
Yeah, they're nuts. Anyway, so this story is called "Man Who Tried to Kill the Queen with a Crossbow Made Darth Vader Terror Video Before Breaking into Palace," which is a great headline.
Yeah, really. The dark side.
Yeah. So in a clip sent on Snapchat, the 19-year-old who was arrested with a crossbow in palace grounds calls himself a Sith and says he will try to kill the queen. The story goes, the man who broke into Windsor Castle on Christmas Day, armed with a crossbow, recorded a threatening Snapchat clip channeling Darth Vader and describing himself as a Sith. Said he was planning to assassinate the queen in revenge for a notorious 1919 massacre in India by British soldiers. Wilson, if we can watch this video, which is it's got a strong Travis Bickle quality and that's probably dating me. Katie, does that
what is that?
Ring any bells for you?
No.
So the movie Taxi Driver.
Oh, it's embarrassing. I've never seen that movie.
Oh, well, or
The Shining. Maybe I'll see that this holiday.
There's a scene where the crazy soon-to-be assassin or would-be assassin, Robert De Niro, stands in front of a mirror and sort of poses and talks to himself and says, "You talking to me?"
Yeah.
And this has pretty strong Travis Bickle energy, but it's creepier significantly. So let's take a look.
It's real.
Yeah.
Because what I've done and what I will do, I will attempt to assassinate Elizabeth, Queen of the Royal Family. months in jail. My name is Darth Jairus.
Now he's thinking, now I'll try it without the crossbow.
Take two. So one of the problems is that you can't really understand him because of the Darth Vader mask.
And the effects.
Right, that's what I meant. Sorry, right, the mask and the effects, yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to create some kind of wind or something, like echo, or also the crossbow just isn't menacing enough to me. Like I was thinking it was going to be a bigger, scarier looking crossbow, like the kind you used to hunt deer with.
Yeah, it doesn't look
I guess a small one is not pleasant either.
Right.
Probably would do the job with a
doesn't
queen.
read.
If you were going to shoot the queen with a crossbow, where would you aim?
Her head?
Yeah.
Where else? Oh no, that's, I guess, the center. That's the best.
Yeah, the corpus, I would think, is where you would.
Yeah.
Right.
He was less than 2,000. This is kind of crazy. He was less than 2,000 feet from the Queen's private rooms when he was seized.
Probably out of firing distance, I'm assuming. So
yeah,
that's getting pretty close.
He got past a spiked fence that divides the publicly accessible land of Windsor Great Park from the private grounds of the palace. Police have attempted to play down the incident, saying the man was arrested within moments of the perimeter being compromised. He says, I'm sorry for what I've done and what I will do. I will attempt to assassinate Elizabeth, Queen of the Royal Family, seeking revenge for the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, as well as those who have been killed, humiliated, and discriminated on account of their race.
Well, I guess if you were going to kill somebody,
they got a lot of blood on their hands.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad about this one. This is probably a mental health story.
It definitely is a mental health story, yeah.
This is the last time we're going to be talking about this person who...
Yeah, we should bleep out his name because we want him to be able to have a healthy, good life after he's, treated.
Except that he won't. He's going to be playing, although it's England, so he might get out.
Yeah, they're a bit more humane than we are.
But he's going to be playing drafts into middle age in some facility where he wears pajamas most of the time. The thing is, in America, when you attempt to assassinate the president in America, is the likelihood higher that you'll end up just pumped full of bullets, or how often have those people actually just been dispatched on the spot? I can't remember one.
Reagan's one wasn't.
Right.
McKinley's wasn't, I don't think.
Well, Booth escaped, and then they had to capture him later.
Right.
But I bet they have a whole facility underneath Maryland somewhere, full of the thousands of people who tried to kill the president that we never heard of. They probably just zip them up in rubber sacks, and it's like the Matrix, probably. Yeah. Right. Like they probably have a floating gelatinous thing where they just
suck them into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here, sit next to the other guy who tried to kill the president 8 minutes ago. Circling back to the unnamed mentally ill person with the crossbow, how often do people try to kill the queen also?
Yeah, I mean, they probably keep that under wraps, right? Like they don't want it to get out. It doesn't bode well it's not good PR for the royal family. It's not good PR for the people taking care of her or supposed to be taking care of her.
Plus, she mostly lives in these sweeping estates where you probably couldn't get within 100 miles of her.
They got within 2,000 feet of her this time.
Yeah, I guess so. Interesting.
What if it was like a daily occurrence we just didn't know about?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I wonder about with the United States. I have to believe that assassination attempts in the United States are much higher than they're telling us.
Right, more frequent.
Because we have a very crazy population with a lot of weapons. I mean, I would almost be disappointed in us if there weren't more assassination attempts. This is our last food groups for a bit anyway, so that was sad.
Yeah.
We didn't mention a real penis once.
Oh, you know what?
Or dead people.
Yeah, we gotta hold on. Man who carved wooden penis in Wilton resolves case. Oh my God, we'd be so remiss to not follow up on this story. It's from just 10 days ago.
That's harsh. Castrated by state police reads the sign, but why? WiltonWoody.com.
An audacious woodworker who erected a 7-foot sculpture of a penis and testicles on his property only to face the long arm of the law is on track to resolve his case.
Poor league.
Poor lead. There's no puns,
There's
right?
no pun, and the long arm of the law is it's a figure of speech, but it's not funny. It's not a funny one, and
right.
it just
It's
distracts.
almost like, why are you going to use that? It's like, I think they were trying to go I think they had a very meek editor who wouldn't let them. I have a feeling there was a pun in there, and that's a kind of a mutilated pun.
I guess long is.
Yeah. What do you think it could have been? How would you have done this, Matt?
An audacious woodworker who erected a 7-foot sculpture of a penis and testicles on his property.
There.
But was shafted by local authorities.
Yeah. That's good.
Is on track to resolve his case.
Yeah. Standing at attention.
Or to resurrect his case. What's the word for bring something back up?
Resurrect. Res-erect. I like that. Yeah.
What would the Daily Beast's red subline be?
Man who carved wooden penis in Wilton resolves case. Upsurge, uptick, standing tall, at attention. Balls. What about just balls?
balls only.
Balls only. Oh yeah.
Cocked and loaded.
That's pretty good.
Cocked and loaded is good. I like that. Yeah, that's it. All right.
Let's see. Let's read this article. Let's go on.
Keep reading.
Okay. Jamie Gagne, who became enraged after state police charged him in June 2020 with displaying offensive sexual material on his lawn, is set to have his charges tentatively dismissed under an agreement with Saratoga County prosecutors on Friday. Gagne's case was given an adjournment in contemplation of dismissal, or ACOD, which means if he stays out of legal trouble for the next 6 months, the case will be tossed out. In June 2020, Gagne, then 32, said he carved the phallic statue as a protest after the Saratoga County town of Walton revoked his building permit for his workshop the prior October. Gagne said he attempted to contact the code enforcer to discuss the situation but could not reach him. Instead, Gagne chose to carve a wooden penis, which attracted considerable more attention. I think they meant considerably. Town Supervisor John Lance said residents lodged complaints. On June 18, 2020, state police arrested Gagne and charged him with displaying offensive sexual material. The penis statue was removed, leaving behind only the wooden testes. Gagne, who uses the moniker Woody Wilton, irreverently
Wilton Woody
irreverently left a memorial reading "Castrated by State Police, establishing dominance with a yard penis." What's that from? What outlet is that from?
This is his site, wiltonwoody.com.
Oh, wiltonwoody.com. So if you go to his website, it's establishing dominance with the yard penis.
I think he made a mistake not giving it more of a curve, although I guess it's hard to do. Anyway, good for that guy. Listeners haven't figured out already, our guest for this episode is, and this important historic episode is going to be none other than Thomas Frank, with whom we haven't checked in a while, and who's got a lot of things on his mind.
Yes, as always.
He's fired up. He's ready to go.
Yep.
He needs no introduction. He wrote Listen Liberal and What's the Matter with Kansas?
The Conquest of Cool.
Yeah.
Started the Baffler. To The Guardian. Has been on Bill Maher.
How many times do you think we're going to mention the state of Kansas in this interview?
I don't know. What do you think? 7.
You can take the over, the under, or the under on that.
I'll take the under.
Okay. All right. So without further ado, let's talk to Thomas Frank.
Great. Noom Weight is a psychology-based approach to getting people on track to eating healthier. It takes a more empathetic direction to building sustainable habits for longer-lasting results. Noom. Sign up for your trial and get psychology-based support and motivation to reach your goals at noom.com/idiots. That's NOOM.com/idiots. Noom. N as in Nancy. OOM as in Matthew. Taibbi. Not the Taibbi part. Just Noom. Not Noomt. Noom. And instead of making you feel guilt or regret, Noom empowers you to keep going. And I know that's been helpful for me. Noom. Because sometimes you can feel like you fell off track and then what's the point? But with Noom, you don't have to look at it that way. You can just get back on it. Noom. So start building better habits for healthier long-term results. It's kind of like moon backwards. Actually, it is exactly moon backwards. Sign up for your trial at noom.com/idiot. That's NOOM.com/idiots.
I want to talk about
have we started?
No, we haven't. Let's do a welcome. No fourth wall. We'll just do intro, then you'll tell us the story about the scare.
I was going to actually work it into the narrative. I have a whole thing planned. I'm going to read a speech to you guys. It goes for 90 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, welcome back to Useful Idiots. Thomas Frank, major friend of the show, good friend of the show, good man, good writer, good. So I don't know.
Good a strong enough word?
No, I'm trying. I don't want his head to get too big, though.
No, don't do that. Don't flatter me. I hate that. Yeah, I'm okay.
Writer.
I'm all right.
You're okay. He's okay. Yeah.
Does Thomas Frank know two things? I have to ask. Does he know about? Does he know about the historic nature of this broadcast? And secondly, does he know? Does he know that when you search for Thomas Frank on Google, under people also ask, the first question is Thomas Frank liberal or conservative?
Isn't that awesome? I thought you were going to say, how many home runs has Thomas Frank hit?
Oh, yeah. How many?
Did I ever tell you guys about how I constantly get emails for Frank Thomas?
Oh, right. Yes, of course.
I played for the White Sox back in the day. And here's the really funny, and I still get them. I get them all the time. I got one just the other day. I get both his nice emails, people that want his autograph or something, and people who hate him.
Why would anybody hate Frank Thomas?
I don't know. And then wait, get this. There's another one who wrote for USA Today, who goes by Thomas Frank and has never changed it. And he, I've never met him. I don't know anything about him. I do get people send me emails directed to him all the time. He got in trouble a couple of years ago in the Trump era. Do you remember this, Matt? There was a CNN. It was what the kind of thing that you write about. It was a Russiagate story that went wrong. It turned out that CNN published it before it was. I mean, it wasn't. Anyhow, the New York Times did a story about CNN's screw up and used my photograph.
Right. Because he right. Yeah, amazing.
And it's like, wow, like that's a screw up on top of a screw up.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive. That's not easy to do.
So yeah, I've got quite a record of being mistaken for other people.
So what do you have going on, Tom? What's
Nothing.
new?
I'm visiting. It's vacation. I'm visiting my family in Kansas City. And came out here. My wife and I took every imaginable precaution coming out here, and still had a COVID scare.
What was it?
It was a false positive on one of these home tests, and so she had already gone home by that point, and spent the day trying to get a real test. What do you call it? A PCR test,
right?
And and we're all terrified because we're trying to avoid giving this to my elderly father. It turned out to be a false positive. But in the meantime, I also decided to drive all around Kansas City looking for a PCR. I tested negative on the same take-home test. I don't have any, but I was like, I got to be sure. And as a result, I had a really interesting brush with our healthcare system in this country, which is to say our healthcare non-system.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had wanted to talk to you guys about the, 1 year of Biden, because last time I was on with, I don't remember when I was on with you.
No, it wasn't. The last time you were on was like May, but the time before
right, we were talking. That's right. We were talking about but
woke CIA, but the time before then was right after.
Yeah, we were talking about the also when on election night. That was really memorable. And I got really trashed.
Yeah, me too.
But
and I went to bed that night
because we didn't know who was going to win. Right.
I thought Trump had won.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, go ahead.
And so I thought it'd be good to look back over that. And what just keeps hitting me in the face is how we elected Biden to take this situation in hand. And how that just has not happened. I mean, you go out and try to get a test. You saw those pictures in the New York Times, people standing in these enormous lines to get tested before they go on their Christmas vacation and stuff. It's unbelievable.
We were just talking about this sort of in the top of the show. What's your perspective on, and this has been a running theme of ours for a while back now, but what's your perspective on things like Build Back Better kind of being left by the wayside? So my thought on this has been that they didn't really want to pass it, and therefore they didn't.
The thesis, the grand thesis of Listen Liberal.
Yeah,
Democrats pretend that they don't have that it's inability.
Yes,
lack of will.
That's exactly right. They're just bottomlessly frustrating, and you often get the sense that fundraising drives the party, not actual achievements. Look, the theory of Listen Liberal is that the Democrats are a class party. It's just not the class. It's not working class.
It's the wrong class. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They're a class party, but it's the professional elite. It's the professional class. And that's who they really care about, and that's who they do favors for, and that's who benefits from their time in office. And part of that is their continual failure to do. I mean, look, I don't know if anybody would call me an expert on American politics, but it has been I would never get to sit at the Rolling Stone round table that you described earlier. But it's obvious to me from my 30 years of observing and writing about this stuff that what ails the Democratic Party and what ails American politics in general is that neither of the two parties are seriously give a damn about ordinary working people. They really don't care, and they both make noises about it. The Republicans in the cultural vein, and the Democrats and they don't do anything, and the situation gets worse and worse and worse. And the thing is that it's the American politics, which seems so awful and like a stalemate. And, we're at each other's throats and we're close to civil war. And you've seen all the crap. You saw the Wall Street Journal just today, this morning, this story about like it's toxic. Politics used to be about partisanship and now it's toxic. We hate each other so much. There's an incredibly easy answer to all this for the Democrats anyway. Do something for these people. You would triumph. You would be, if you actually were to deliver on like $15 an hour minimum wage, or make pharmaceuticals affordable, or get universal health care, do any of these things, have union organizing all over America.
They would never lose another election.
Yeah, they'd be like Roosevelt. They'd have 40-year triumph. And the same goes for the Republicans, but they'll never do any of those things. They're not interested in doing those things. The Democrats at least say they are, Right. And instead they deliver like, shit. I'm sorry. I should try to keep.
No. I think this is an interesting point, because the Republicans are being forced out of the game of big money donors, so they're going to have to adapt.
Yes, that's another really interesting story.
But not right? Like big, like as an individual big money donors, or as
it used to be that a preponderance of the big industry money from financial services, weapons makers, oil and gas is still true, but most of the pharmaceutical companies, most like 55-45, it went to Republicans, because that's what they mostly wanted. But
wait, can I step in here, Katie?
Sure.
Matt and I are older than you, and in the 80s, like go back and look at the election of 84. The money
I'm just saying, aren't they still there? Aren't they still there? Is my point.
No, they're not. Biden outraised, and Hillary outraised and outspent the Republicans, and Biden was not even the incumbent.
Trump completely changed the equation about this, because the corporate America, by and large, even though they're in favor of a lot of the kind of deregulatory policies that Trump pushed, from a stability and predictability point of view, they were much more comfortable culturally with
Hillary or Biden.
With Hillary or Biden. And that's why, Hillary outraised Trump 2-1 the first time. Yeah. And
it was a little closer in 2020. Yeah. But there's been a transformation among America's rich. So what's the matter with Kansas was about this change, this slow sea change in the votes of the white working class. Oh, I just noticed there's a bird nest in the tree right outside my window.
Metaphor for something.
And it's a flicker. I can see him from here. doesn't matter. Okay, there's a sea change in working class politics, but the much more rapid and more startling changes in the allegiance of the professional elite. So when we were kids, they were Republicans. Like your family doctor would have been a Republican. People that
financial
worked
analysts.
Yep, all these people worked on Wall Street. They all would have been Republicans, and today they tend to be Democrats. Yes. Now there's still big money on the Republican side, of course, but it tends to be entrepreneurial money, people who don't work for, who don't have advanced degrees, people who built their own
pillow companies.
Yep, who own their own company, who built up their own company, people who aren't in the big metro areas, stuff like that. So I'm speaking to you from Kansas City, a suburb of Kansas City, and it happens to be, the neighborhood where I grew up, so I'm fascinated by it. And I think I've shared this with you before, but it's an amazing story. So when I wrote What's the Matter with Kansas, this neighborhood that I'm sitting in was overwhelmingly Republican. Every elected official from the neighborhood was Republican. They went to the state representatives in the state legislature, county officials, all of them were Republican. It's by far the richest city in the state of Kansas, was the biggest donor to politics in Kansas, and gave overwhelmingly to Republicans. Everybody was a Republican here. It just went for Biden. And it went for Biden. I looked it up. He won every single precinct in this neighborhood. That's what's happening with the American elite across the board.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at if you look at the last couple of congressional elections, like 41 of the top 50 wealthiest districts are voted Democrat. All of the top 10, and the numbers are not just majority numbers. They're overwhelming. They tend to be like between 65 and 90% voting in these districts where Republicans used to be pretty competitive. Conversely, what we're seeing, and Ryan Grimm just wrote about this in The Intercept recently about the Virginia elections, Republicans gained basically with every kind of working class voter in Virginia across all races.
Including non-white working class people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's you see that all over the place. I want to say though, what's the distinction between the rich, the wealthy who support the D's, and the wealthy who support the R's? And what it tends to be is identification with, and this is going to interest you, Matt, with education. Mm-hmm. So people who trace their success to education, who's based on educational credentials, educational achievement. They have advanced degrees, they went to a good college, etc. These people are almost always Democrats. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is the professional elite. What's really I don't want to complain. I should not talk about this stuff in a personal way, but it is funny writing about this for years and seeing it all come true. And now I basically have to write for foreign outlets. Right. It's unacceptable to say this stuff in America.
Well, Tom, you and I have talked about this before, but like we were part of a wave that was already getting rid of the older, like Jimmy Breslin style columnists. Right.
Well, like you speak for yourself. I liked that guy.
No. What I'm saying is like it used to be in every market there was the working class columnist.
Mike Royko. He was one of my heroes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly. And then they started to vanish from all those papers, and they were replaced by people who had the same political sensibilities, but they had different backgrounds. They were. Yes. They were from professional class backgrounds, and they didn't speak in the vernacular of
that's right. And there's the book about this. It's called The Boys on the Bus.
Yeah, Tim Krause.
1972, and it is a celebration of the triumph of what he calls professional journalists, people who went to journalism school. Because he says these old working class journalists were couldn't see past the lies. They were. I don't have the book in front of me, but he goes on and on and on about this, how great it is, this new generation of journalists in the 70s. And I think, Matt, with you and I, that
you and me, not you and I.
Thank you,
Had to-
Katie. I was just about to correct myself, and you got me. You and I are a second removed from that, in that we've
Right.
seen through the whole the professionals aren't. So the whole idea of professionalism is that they are have the public interest at heart, and they care about other people, not themselves. And
Right.
what you and I have discovered is that, in fact, they are very self-interested, and they act as a class.
Right.
Mhm.
And they
That's the-
pretend
that's
that
the
they're just
fundamental
calling
insight.
balls and strikes. That's the
Yes,
most
they
dangerous
pretend to be
part.
they pretend to be objectivity, but it's always there's always class interest at heart. And your stories about Loudon, Matt, are like you've seen this now face to face.
Loud and
Well,
clear.
anytime you write about education, and I know I should stop blabbing, but
But I mean, I think it speaks to a lot of the stuff that you've been writing about for years, with beginning with what's the matter with Kansas, is that it's a sort of progressive alienation of the Democratic Party from their own theoretical base.
Yeah,
like these a lot of these people should be their voters,
and used to be, or their parents were,
or their parents were, right? Especially these immigrant communities, like these sort of new Indian and Asian immigrants. They just would never have thought to vote for anybody else, right? And
yeah, it's like an asshole like Trump. That's just like, it blows my mind.
Right. And then but they're speaking now, and they've been so far removed, I think, that their identity is like the person on the block, right? That Mike Royko type voice who hung out with the hard hats and knew what it was like to sit around with a bunch of people who are just jackhammering during, that person doesn't exist in
journalism.
In journalism for sure, but I also don't think in academia or in Democratic Party or anywhere in politics.
Well, you got Joe Biden. Come on now, let's be
fair.
True.
Yeah, that's Joe Biden.
He's like, what's funny is he is like the last one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just say and I'm sorry to blab so much.
No,
Katie, I apologize.
That's what you're here for.
I think everybody should read Matt's series about Loudoun County, and I want to go back to. So I'm going to tell you. You guys haven't heard from me in a while. One of the things I've been doing is when What's the Matter with Kansas came out, it was we didn't know it was going to succeed. That came as kind of a surprise to everybody involved. And I never recorded an audiobook of it. And so I just went back and did that back in November. And I guess it's going to be out pretty soon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so, but I had occasion to reread it after many years, to reread the whole thing. And there are parts of it that I, obviously that I'm still really proud of. But one of the things that really struck me is this. This is when the whole thing about the professional elite versus the white working class, when that first occurred to me, and the way it occurred to me. So I don't know if you know the origin story of that book. I was living in Chicago, and Kansas, had this big fight over the theory of evolution. And I would read about it in like the Chicago Tribune or whatever, and I couldn't believe it, right? Because I hadn't been back to Kansas in a long time. I grew up here in the 80s and the 70s, and this was not the kind of place that would ever do that. It was not Tennessee in the 1920s,
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what the hell? And it was so embarrassing. And I finally decided I had to look into this, and I had to write about it. And it's sort of deep into What's the Matter with Kansas. So I don't blame people who didn't get that far in the book. But what happened was what the conservatives discovered was they could set up a kind of culture war set piece. And they do this to this day. And you happened upon it yourself, Matt, just the other day, although what you describe is much more organic than the theory of evolution fight. So these guys in Kansas picked this fight, and they contrived over the theory of evolution. And the idea was parents should have a say. Their argument was parents should have a say in what their children are taught in biology class, right? And the parents, if you ask people what they think about the theory of evolution, they'll always say, we think they should teach all the theories.
Right.
And like, well, intelligent design, these other ones, which are ridiculous, and nobody takes them, no scientist takes them seriously, but parents are very fair-minded. They in Kansas, at least, they tend to be fairly religious. And so they They'll always answer that way. We think that the biology teacher should have to teach all the theories. Okay, so if you're a smart conservative activist, you set this situation up where the parents confront the scientific experts. And they actually did this in Kansas. It wasn't really a courtroom, but it was some kind of public hearing, and where you have a humble parent from Prairie Village or something like that, and then you have a paleontologist from the University of Kansas come on. And what does the paleontologist do when you start giving him questions? He pulls rank. Always, always, 100% of the time, the expert will pull rank. Be like, I have a PhD from blah, 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 and I know all about this. And, who are you? And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And every time. And this is the culture wars. This is the culture wars. You get this expert to come out there and pull rank on a humble, ordinary, unprepossessing taxpayer and voter. And the expert, is right about the theory of evolution. Like, let's be honest, he's right about that.
Yeah.
But politically, it's poison. It's absolute poison to say parents shouldn't have a say in what their kids are taught. It's like, yeah, good luck with that one, guys.
And that's when you're right. Like, because I had almost the identical experience. I had to cover the Dover case in Pennsylvania.
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yeah.
Right. So I had to cover that whole trial. You remember, Katie, this was the big intelligent design case in the early 2000s where there was a school district in Dover, Pennsylvania that it was actually a really bizarre, weird local story involving like a just barely a quorum of local officials who managed to stick intelligent design into the curriculum, and it exploded into this national controversy that and there was a big trial that was supposed to be like the Scopes monkey trial, and exactly what Tom described took place, which was the witnesses for sort of against intelligence design. They were all the leading experts in the world. They came from Harvard and wherever, and all they did is they talked about their credentials, and they went off about how stupid the theory was, and the result was they overwhelmingly won the case. It wasn't even close, but I think they lost politically a lot in that situation.
And Matt, that's the essence of the culture wars, is to set up these set pieces of experts versus democracy again and again and again and again. And they don't even have to set it up anymore. We do it naturally now,
Yeah. Right.
I mean, just open up the New York Times. Every day there's another one, or Fox News. Every day there's another one. Yeah.
And but where this really starts to break down is when the experts start being wrong about things,
yes. which happens with incredible regularity these days.
Yeah, exactly. And I
the
think
the lab leak hypothesis. Oh my Lord. Yeah, let's not go into that now, but yeah.
Yeah, or the financial crisis, all the things they got wrong about that.
The Iraq War, Afghanistan. Come on,
right.
It goes
were
on
they
and
wrong,
on.
or were they wrong as in they didn't get it, or they got it? It was just a morally, ethically wrong position.
Well, they were corrupt. I mean, in all of these cases, you see the same thing. You see enormous conflicts of interest. You see the corruption of the professionals, the corruption of the experts, and you see them acting in their class interest. The bailouts of Wall Street are the classic example. But another one is the opioid epidemic. That's not drug smugglers doing that.
Yeah,
that's big pharma, and that's the medical profession doing that. It's the most incredible thing. And but you also see it in the lab leak hypothesis. They circle the wagons. If that turns out to be true, as Katie, you and I talked about on a famous occasion, if that hypothesis turns out to be true, then science, then science had a hand in causing the pandemic, and scientists know this, and they are defending one another and acting in their, interests as a profession. And you can see them doing it. They do it all the time. They circle the wagons. They defend one another. There's censorship on, about that, the censorship on social media.
Right.
Anyhow, they act as a class.
Right. So it's not like they're wrong. They're not mistaken.
Well, they could be
Well,
mistaken
wait a minute.
about things too.
They are mistaken all the time. The financial crisis is the classic example. It was all based on the idea that that real estate values never go down. Well, that was wrong. There are a bunch of other errors mixed in. But
right. Okay. So it's a combo of mistakes and also
but the
intentional
problem is that
aligning with class interests.
yes, but the mistakes are the mistakes of orthodoxy. So the way professions work is it's a consensus. They arrive at consensus through peer review, through other processes, and they all agree on something that's orthodoxy. What about when the orthodoxy is wrong? As it often is. So, for example, in trade, remember in the 90s, you guys remember, all those economists signed the group letter supporting NAFTA. It will increase manufacturing in America. Exactly the opposite happens. And now, 20 years later, Paul Krugman and the gang are like, "Oh, dude, we were wrong."
Right.
Well,
Trump runs on it.
Yes, they were all wrong together. That's the important thing. If they're all wrong together, then nobody gets punished. Nothing. Vietnam War is the same thing. They're all wrong together. The Iraq War, the whole foreign policy community is all wrong together. This is the recurring problem with these guys. That and then the self-interest stuff. But orthodoxy is absolute poison. And Matt and Katie, you and I took a vow. Okay, maybe we didn't, but we like metaphorically took a vow. This is what the Baffler was all about. If you've got an orthodoxy, I'm here to smash it. I'm here with my sledgehammer and I'm going to attack it. And what's funny is that as I've got older, and I sort of thought that my side would win that dispute, right? The internet and everything, you could say anything you wanted. It's the opposite has happened. Orthodoxies have triumphed in this country in a way that's kind of astonishing.
I think that's a fascinating story because if you read books by people like Martin Gurry, like the whole thesis is that orthodoxies cannot survive the internet.
Yeah, no, but the opposite happened. Groupthink, groupthink. We're all afraid of being called out, getting canceled, getting censored.
Yeah, and they're able to mandate. I think they've come around to the idea that it has to be managed very aggressively to prevent, the kind of emperor has no clothes effect that the internet had on orthodoxies. That's sort of inherent to what the internet is all about. It's pretty difficult to keep up any kind of fiction for any length of time, as long as there's this endless number of people who are looking at a problem. I mean, if you remember,
so you say, but these things have a powerful, this groupthink stuff has. So you're very optimistic. I'm a glass half empty kind of guy, and I think that
I think of Matt as a major optimist, although he did show some optimism the other day about America. That was cute.
I went back and reviewed this story. I know I sent it to both of you. It's the last political story I wrote, and probably, I don't want to say we'll ever write, but it was for Le Monde Diplomatique, and it was my theory of the Trump years. And I kept Matt. I've like talked to many times. Like, I want to write the theory of the Trump years. So I finally sat down and wrote it. And the idea is that the Trump years were this kind of not experiment, but the professional elite felt that this sort of existential challenge to itself. That the war was on in the form of Trump, and at first they called this populism. Remember, and populism was supposed to be this uprising of the ignorant, like stupid people saying that they could run things as well as the professionals, etc. And but by the end, they had basically emerged triumphant. And if you go back and read a lot of the early, the hallmark of the Trump years was hysteria, hysteria about Russiagate, hysteria about this, hysteria about that, hysteria about everything.
The caravan, Kavanaugh nomination, whatever, Bountygate, whatever it was. Yeah, I'm
not talking about Republicans here. I'm talking about the sort of society's ruling class. It's hegemonic elite, the ones who speak. Mm-hmm. Okay, the ones who talk. The ones who are in the newspapers and control TV and, control the sort of, what would you call it? The
news cycle.
But more than that, come on, the commanding heights of our society, of our civilization. And these people felt like they were facing an existential challenge in the form of Trump. And if you go back and read like the early texts on this, it's pretty funny what they say Trump is going to do. Trump is going to censor them. Trump is going to censor the press. Trump is going to unleash. They didn't have the word cancel culture yet, but Trump is going to unleash these Twitter hordes who are going to shout down experts. And you go right down the list, and they're basically describing all the things that did happen, but they didn't happen to them. You see what I'm saying? They got it exactly wrong.
They did it.
Trump himself got kicked off of Twitter, they were constantly saying Trump is going to, this is a big one. Trump is Hitler, of course. That was the comparison on everyone's lips. Trump is waiting for his Reichstag moment. He's going to be a strong man, and he's going to wait for a crisis like 9/11, and then he's going to take power and all this stuff. And it actually came to pass, COVID, and he didn't do it.
Right.
It's this period of professional class hysteria and fantasy that is absolutely fascinating. And I wonder if we will ever, I feel like we've recovered from it to some degree now that, Trump is gone. But anyhow, I should shut up now and let you.
No, I think that's an interesting, where do they go from here is the question, right? Because you almost have like a
you've reminded me.
Yeah.
Yes, because they what they missed in their hysteria and their frenzy and their the desire to denounce and all this, what they missed is that Trump also represented opportunity. When Trump beat Hillary, nobody thinks about this anymore. Trump was to her left on a bunch of issues.
Yeah.
On trade, on Wall Street,
yeah.
as you know this, Matt. He was constantly denouncing Goldman Sachs. Do you remember this? And there was a bunch of other things too. Now he was a racist asshole on many things, but it doesn't take a genius to see that Trump broke the consensus of 30 years standing. Trump just smashed it. Here's a Republican candidate attacking Wall Street. Here's a Republican candidate attacking these free trade agreements. The party of the left, attacking them from the left. The party of the left should say, wait a second, this is an opportunity. This is our chance to do something really, to break out of this cycle that we've been in ever since Reagan. Here's our chance to smash it. And they did the opposite. They did the opposite. They're like, okay, if the Republicans aren't going to be the party of Wall Street anymore, we'll do that. We'll take that role.
And to hear the rest of the interview, please go to usefulidiots.substack.com.
Now, that was great. Always fun to talk to Tom. We sort of let ourselves get carried away there, but we always do with him because it's so interesting to talk to him.
Such a good time. Yeah. It's hard to stop. I like the way he said, and then I'll shut up. As if we want him on the show.
We invited him on to hear his thoughts. We don't want him to shut up, but no.
Maybe he thinks we want to have him on like the Chris Farley interview where we're like, Tom, remember you wrote that piece?
Remember that awesome. That time you were so awesome?
That was awesome.
No, that was great. And which brings us to a sad moment. So here we are at the end it'll be the last show for a while. So thank you so much to everybody. It's been so much fun doing this, and it's not over though. This is not the end.
No, it's not over. It's going to keep going with a different co-host, and even that though. And then Matt's going to pop up. Don't forget about those pop-ups.
With those pop-ups, I'll pop up from time to time, and
the second he hands in those galleys.
That's right. Then I'm back in service. So
yeah.
But thanks for hanging in. Have a great new year, and we will see you.
I'll see you with Aaron Mate Monday morning.
That's right. You will see Katie with Aaron on Monday morning, and I will be fighting my first deadline, which I'm already late on. So. But thank you to everybody, and have a great holiday. And namaste. See you soon.
Hello, thank you so much for listening to and watching Useful Idiots. For full episodes and extended interviews, please subscribe at usefulidiots.substack.com. You can subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/usefulidiots for clips, live streams, and full episodes. Also, subscribe to us wherever you find your podcast. Follow us on Twitter at UsefulIdiotPod and use the hashtag UsefulIdiotsPod. Join us Mondays at 10 a.m. for the Useful Idiots Monday Morning Show, where we discuss the Sunday morning news shows so you don't have to watch them.
All right, see you back here in 25 minutes.
Is it this?
No.
This is what I was thinking of.
What is that?
That's
Not
Hugh
Hugh
Jackman,
that's
not
Hugh
Hugh Grant.
Jackman. What is that? How does he have testes on his coming out of his neck? What is that?